Recently, I found out I mentally disturbed my girlfriend with how I think. Okay, tell me why disturbing. Disturbing.
It's disturbing because
In the board game Codenames, your goal is to psychologically mind meld with the other players. You'll guide them towards multiple words such as dog and pig by creating a single word clue such as animal to connect them all together. Join Jen and I as we break down Codenames, why you need it, its mentally disturbing side, and the odd drawback that we've seen from playing it with hundreds of people. 2 words to describe Codenames.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Reveal. Oh. Okay, tell me why disturbing. Disturbing.
It's disturbing because the people you think you know really well go off on a totally different tangent than you even would conceive of. You actually have no idea what they're like and what choices they're going to go with, what train of thought they might have. So,
But obviously not me.
well, you realize that maybe you actually don't think at all like somebody else.
Right. Oh, God. Yeah, I was hoping you didn't pick up on those things because I was like, I wanted us to really do well. And then it was disturbing when we were like, my God.
Yeah, I think we thought we'd do very well
Yeah.
and get a lot of the things right. But in the end, we played something like 10 times before we won once, which is
Don't
actually
reveal our
terrible.
secrets.
So, but
What do you mean? We did so well in the first go.
But it is also interactive
Yeah.
on that note.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool when there is somebody that you like click with in the way of your thought process for which
Sure.
words might associate. And that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, if you click with someone and then you give a really cool clue that is actually amazing, like it almost feels like magic to some degree, right?
Would you agree?
yeah, I totally do.
Well, have you, just out of curiosity, like, did you ever feel like you made a huge connection with someone at the table or something, and you're like, we get each other?
Yeah, in the past, but I can't think of examples at this
people.
point.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, clearly.
I think that that's obvious.
Yeah, well, we did pretty well on this one. Just want to throw that out there.
did, but we
A lot of failure, but some success.
yeah, I think
Not
we
today, though,
kind of
but-
got it where we can't stretch out our
Yeah.
natural inclinations for words very much. We have to be very basic with each other.
We do.
And I wonder if there are other couples that can maybe do that better, where they like go out on a limb and can really connect
I think so.
because they know how each other think.
I think so. Yeah.
In terms of my words, psychological. So I put this one, I think it's kind of along the same lines as your disturbing.
To some
It's a
degree.
nicer version of disturbing.
Yeah, because I didn't get nightmares from my words, but you seem to have nightmares from remembering the clues I give.
Yeah.
But psychological in the sense that it is very much about getting in the other person's head. So like constantly when we're playing, I'm always thinking about like, is she going to receive that in the way that I'm thinking? Or is that too abstract for her?
Well, I think not just psychological in each other's head, psychological in my own head, because I'm trying to think of what words that I might be successful with and like try and think of something
Oh.
that makes sense.
What do you mean? Like, are you...
Well, I'm not just thinking about you. I'm like, I find it challenging to find words. That,
Oh, even just to have them connect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's psychological in that way too. Like that's why it's an encompassing term for me, for sure. So is that the big struggle for you? Is like when you've got, what was your example again? You had,
It was very hard to connect steam and
connect
driver
those two
and
words, yeah.
omit fuel and meter and some other ones like bench.
so for you, that's the psychological, like that's a big challenge is connecting the words.
Words
Well, with-
psychologically for you.
With the other words on the board, it was, I thought, quite hard. And but I didn't think it was that strong either. So I'm not surprised you.
But I agree, like it's really tough sometimes when you're sitting there and you're just like, I cannot think of anything to link these clues. Like they're so opposite. Like if people at home, if they could think of something for brother in Iceland, I was just racking my brain for that one. And then we ended up not connecting on it, which kind of lost us the game. But
But it's
Those are
also
tough.
omitting other words on the board.
yes. Yeah, like figuring out what the spy or the assassin is not going to be.
And it's especially cool in a group too when
yeah.
you have the two dueling code masters where they're trying to give their own team. And then to see your own team sort of decide which words actually are the one that the Codemaster meant is kind of cool.
Well, you get to expose the real aliens out there. You're like, what is your thought process?
Yes.
And then they just say some whacked out stuff. I love that. I love it as long as it's not on my team. But because I'm the only alien that's allowed, right?
Yes.
So I've also got speculative. Like you're just never sure. So it doesn't ever feel like you have confidence in this game to me.
It's very rare.
You might have confidence on like the first. So if you said like wagon, like I was 100% sure it was going to be driver. But then it's always like speculation on the second one. You're like, I have to go with my best clue, my best guess.
Yeah, speculative is a really good word
So
for
that's
that.
what I was thinking.
Because I think as both like a Codemaster and a guesser,
Totally.
you're speculative.
That's what makes it fun, isn't it?
It's definitely one of the best party ones out there, I think.
Well, something that's interesting that a lot of people will say is like, is it a party game? If we put out these words, yours are more party-ish to me, except for disturbing. But mine are, to me, like this game kind of plays a lot more thoughtfully. And there's laughs and stuff. And I think that's where the party connection comes in. But I can see when people say it's not a party game, I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think it totally depends on the audience. But I've had some certain events where it's been like really funny and everyone just like is having a blast. And
Is it the laughs that makes it, like,
yeah, it
if
can
it wasn't...
be funny.
Okay.
Like, so I think it is partially a party game, I would think, for sure.
Yeah, because I think that's what tips it over to me understanding it's a party game, because I feel like it provides a good framework for you to laugh, if that makes sense. Because you could have, like, for example, if you're playing like a strategy game, it's not, the strategy game isn't necessarily creating an atmosphere that's going to make you giggle with friends. But this game, I think, does that. It's just a little more subtle in how it does it.
I think you can make anything into a party game.
Really? Should we play, I don't know, we'll play like, what's the driest game you can think of that we played? Brass.
I was going to say, actually,
So it's,
like,
We'll just make brass into a party game.
it's just, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that's the only way I could have a blast playing brass.
Really? You liked it, didn't you?
It's good.
Okay.
But I think having the crisp Pilsner is probably a good way to make it a
Okay, drink till it feels fun.
party game. But
And like the Industrial Revolution is not the party vibe you're looking for.
no, just trying to get that coal moving.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
that's exciting, right? So
What are some games that kind of remind you of Codenames?
one that comes to mind for me that's similar, or two actually, really. Maybe we'll just go back and forth. Is So Clover's one,
Oh, So Clover, yeah.
and I really think that that's like a top, like
Yeah. Totally.
party game in quotations,
Yeah.
but like the same sort of idea where it's really cool. You write down words that are supposed to associate.
Totally similar, because I feel like Codenames has just inspired so many copycats. Because this one to me was one of the first ones that was really big, and so you've seen like games like Decrypto now. I really like Cross Clues, which to me feels like a distillation of this.
That was the other one I was thinking was similar.
Cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like there's so many similar games at this point. It's almost like Codenames was like first, and then you just like pick your favorite branch, and then there's all these different types of Codename clones.
Yeah.
I still think Codenames is one of the best ones, though.
Yeah.
Of all those
definitely.
clones.
Yeah, I think that can be for any style of game or whatever. Like you can branch off, but I definitely think Codenames has stood the test of time for me, at least, and it always is dynamic depending on the people you're playing with, because it's never going to be the same, right? Like if you play with a new, fresh group, then it's very exciting to see everyone like light up when they are trying to play or like be befuddled at someone else's like word they choose. It's all very interesting. But So Clover and Cross Clues are also very strong.
So like when we were doing the board game group thing, and we were kind of hosting, and then we were doing it with lots of different people. Like we found this one to be one of the ones that just like always worked.
Codenames.
Codenames, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It
Yeah.
changes up and it's forgiving for a larger number of people, definitely.
If you don't even own any board games, this might be the most flexible game, honestly. Like the one to own, even over some of the classic gateway games like Seven Wonders. You kind of have Seven Wonders Duel, or like a Catan. Like I would actually recommend this over those games. And I think because of the situations that you might get into, just like, hey, you're going out, or people are coming over, you're hosting something, it's more likely that this would actually come out than like a strategy game like Catan or Ticket to Ride or something.
I think it hits a bunch of different types of people. I think that it's quite easy to explain. And if you're not sure, then after one example of someone who does know how to play, then they're good. And yeah, it's just much more simple for most families or groups of friends to pull out and just play.
And then if you like it, then you know you like that style of game, like the word association game. And then you've got like So Clover and you've got Decrypto and all these games that you can then explore, right? So even though it's like one of the older, like sort of the old guard of that style of game, I still think it's probably the one that you want to investigate first.
And even these offshoots that we've tried,
Yeah.
like the picture version of Codenames, it's still decent and it's slightly different. It's different enough to enjoy for a while for sure. And then this Duet one is also decent, I would say.
Do you like this one better or the original?
I like the original better, but you can't always have the luxury of a bunch of people playing a game with you, right?
That's so interesting because I like this one more.
Really?
Well, first of all, I'm a fan of this person sitting beside me. So I like to play with you a lot. And then, so for me, it like distills the experience down so we're playing together. And then we get to do both roles, which I enjoy.
Yes, but that's where it like clearly does become both interactive and disturbing. Because it really narrows down on the fact that like in a group we might be able to hide it that we're not thinking the same, but there's no hiding that we had very different ideas on words.
I think I have to step up my game is what I'm hearing. And then maybe you'll like it more.
Well,
But I think there's probably room for subjectivity there then. That if you like original Codenames and I like this one, but they're both great. So we want them both, right? But what's one drawback? 1, 2, 3. Awkward. I put gymnastics, which I know is the weirdest thing. So I'm going to explain it right away.
hey, yes, you go first, please.
I feel like the toughest part is the mental gymnastics that you have to do when you're coming up with the clue. So it literally like twists my brain sometimes. And I think that it's a lot to ask for someone. Like this is a drawback where it's a lot to ask a spy master. If you're playing the traditional Codenames and you're the person who has to link the words for your team, it's a lot to ask for you to do those mental gymnastics. And then like if you're wrong, then your team might really like berate you. It's really group dependent on that way, right? Like people are like, what the hell are you thinking? And that can be really stressful for some people. And I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because like, especially if you come across situations where it's like you literally have a very tough thing and everyone's waiting, then it's like, the gymnastics. So you have to really think to make something work.
Sure,
it's definitely
totally.
It's part of it's like good qualities, but it's also a challenge.
Because that challenge is very different from some other things. Like it's not really, it doesn't come across in normal life that much to like link these things.
And if you can be somebody like who is the spy master who gets very flustered, that can be very awkward for them, which leads to my word. And like that I find is if you don't know the people that well either, and they say a word that's like, maybe not the right choice in a group of people they don't know that well. I've come across that a couple times where it's like, oh yeah, you're say a word that's very awkward.
Right.
And it's like, do they actually mean this connection? It's like, that can be extremely off-putting, I guess.
That's where it can be empathetic in some ways too, like when you play the game, because it's like if you choose something that does come across as awkward, where it's like very selfish as a clue almost. Like only you would sort of think of that. And you have the inability to think outside of yourself.
It's true.
It's almost like you need some level of empathy or something, or like to be able to, again, relate. Otherwise, it would be very awkward, I think.
In that
And in the
circumstance.
board game group, for sure, I remember a couple standouts where it was just like very odd. The
Yeah.
words they chose are like clearly like no one actually would think of that. And I don't mean this in a basic way. I mean, it's like literally it was something very personal, right?
Well, I just remember, I mean, there's this one guy that we liked. He was really cool, but he was a lover of like French history. Do you remember this guy? And so he would just give like song clues related to like national anthems about something that was on the board. And it's like, that's cool that you know that information, but it's also like nobody, first of all, people's strong suit necessarily isn't history. So you're going like 3 levels deep.
You have no idea. It's like you're with a group of like random people that you don't know. You're choosing these very intricate things.
Yeah.
But bless him for going for it, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, he was also a stickler for the rules. Remember that?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's one good point is like, I think that's also something that can be a drawback for some people is sometimes the rules can get like a little, where you're making social contracts where you have to be like, don't look and like don't point at certain things unless you're actually selecting.
Yeah. With this type of game, I would say it's really important to, before you start with whomever you're playing, it's like just make sure you're all on the same page of how it's going to go.
Well, you remember some situations like that too, where it's like I don't know, you were cheating. Like you kind of indicated that was your word. And it's like we're sitting there at the table with like 14 people and there's like one person who really feels strongly about that. So I think that's where your boundaries for sure come in.
And that's where it's like kind of an interesting game because it's such a mixed bag with like who you're playing with. It's totally different experience with people if you know them really well. And then it's like also a really interesting experience if you don't know anyone. So this is a great game for that.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's super flexible. Yeah.
It's a great people watching game.
Yeah.
So
what's your rating?
Oh, I think it's a great game.
Yeah.
I think all around for the reasons we've talked about, like its flexibility, its enjoyment from a bunch of different scenarios. It's not too hard to set up or anything. Like this is
so
a solid
easy.
like 9 game.
Oh, 9 out of 10.
Which I'm quite strict, and
Yeah.
so I find that this is definitely a strong game.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting off with a really strong game that we both really like. And I think like if we tend to like lots of strategy games and stuff too, and party games, but I think this is one of the better party games. And obviously it is because it's like stood the test of time. It's the one that you can buy in a Walmart or a Target because pretty much everybody likes it, right? So I definitely agree with you. A 9? I would give it... Yeah, I'd give it a 9. I'm on board with you. Codenames is among the biggest crowd-pleasing games in existence, but there are 2 other games that have also wowed the 500 plus people I've played them with. I reveal those 2 in this video, or after playing 2,000 games, discover the 3 I've ranked as my top 3.